of a new decade in the vibrant East Village art scene, Keith Haring, 21 years old.
Most of it at that time was really about having fun, and we had no idea, I don't think anyone did at that time, that what we were doing was in any way going to be important or influential or going to have some effect on all of our lives or on the lives of other people in the city.
Art was breaking out of the gallery. Signs of creative energy were out on the street. And Haring, the man behind the subway drawings, was showing us that energy, popping out everywhere around us.
I just, by accident, noticed the first empty black panel on the subway because I was riding the subway almost every day to go to work. And I saw this empty black panel and immediately sort of flashed in my head that it's the perfect place to draw it.
But not for the New York City Police Department. Haring was arrested for criminal mischief. But nothing could stop Haring from drawing all over the city. His images started to appear everywhere. Keith Haring was born in 1958 in Kutztown, Pennsylvania. He grew up in the 60s in a middle-class American family, influenced by Walt Disney and his father, an amateur cartoonist. Haring was too young to take part in the political turbulence of the 60s, but that same spirit was to emerge later in his work.
Most of my, I suppose, political concerns and social concerns came from, my life experience. I mean, partly being being born in the 60s, or late 50s, and growing up in the 60s, and sort of being around the quote-unquote counterculture, but not being able to participate in it, but definitely being very affected by it, and being at the age at that time when I was, I think, most impressionable, and seeing things like the Vietnam War when I was 10 years old, and seeing race riots on television, and reading Life and Look magazine, things like that.
In 1978, he moved to New York City to study painting at the School of Visual Arts. New York, where what was considered vandalism started to look very much like real art. A feeling of the 60s revolution hung in the air. It seemed as though these graffiti artists wanted to make it happen again in the 80s.
What was interesting about this young group was that they had tremendous stamina, euphoria, and drive to recreate what they thought to be the best things or the most fun or the most innovative things to be done at that time. They had tremendous energy and vitality. They had a new message to give. They had a new vocabulary to sort of communicate to and to broaden, to rediscover and to elaborate on. The idea of behaving rather like the older artists in them was not acceptable to them. They weren't interested in it. It wasn't fun for them.
These young artists were following in the steps of the pop artists of the 60s, who broke through the boundaries of the conventional art world. Art could no longer be restrained by the clean white walls of the art gallery. Artists like Christo began making art on a scale too vast to be contained. Works like Running Fence stretched over 24 miles of California coastline. For Haring, the impact of Running Fence reflected Christo's desire to bring people together to create public art.
I believe very strongly that 20th century art is not a single individualistic experience.
Christo involved people in the creation of his art. Andy Warhol, the most controversial artist of his time, mass-produced his art as a comment on the increased mechanization of society. He used the familiar images of popular culture to draw a greater public into his pop art revolution.
In that way, Warhol is the father to this new generation of artists who also seek a direct engagement with the public. Certainly Keith Haring, Kenny Scharf, Basquiat all attempted to make images that were were accessible and generic enough that